Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today we are analysing chapters 9, 10 and 11 of the casting of Frank Stone. They're all pretty short and sweet, so let's jump straight into it. And we start off with the descent of the damned, and we are with Linda in the admin building. And this is a basic exploration scene, isn't it? We've got some shimmying, we've got some crawling, and we also have the opportunity to find some clues, one of which I'll bring up now because I think it might be a nice subtle psycho Easter egg, maybe. But you look in this locker and it finds like this letter from his grandma, who was basically saying, it sort of details that he had a tough upbringing, he couldn't make a lot of friends, and she was putting a lot of self-importance on him. Which I feel like, and this is one of the bit of the mini threads I do get in this game, is that the fact that he had like an older woman in his life that was putting so much self-importance on him, it was therefore very easy for Augustine to manipulate him into becoming a bit of a sort of a narcissist, a killer essentially, because he already had that drummed into him from like his grandmother at a young age, which I thought was just a nice, little interesting touch for a clue. But in terms of what else goes down, mate, I mean, we go into a boiler room and we've got to find parts again to turn the steam off that's in the doorway. This is obviously, I think, the second time that this has come up in the game so far. Are you still on board with, finding the parts to fix something or whatever?
Yeah, I am. It's different. It could have just been, she has to go through the rooms and then leaves. But nah, it gives us a little more. And one thing I weirdly liked, you could call it annoying. I actually quite like the fact that it's not like the parts aren't in the room you're at. You've got to backpedal and go way, way back and then go to almost like the original rooms you started in the admin building, and then you have to shimmy back. A lot of people might think that's annoying because you've got to cover the same ground. Maybe it's slightly time wasting, but I don't know. I weirdly like that. And back to your point before about Frank Stone and the letters and stuff. But yeah, and you know what? This administration building, I clocked it on from the prologue where you're playing as Sam, and I was like, okay, that building's locked up. I wonder what's in there. And it's quite cool that you get to see it again as Linda so late in the game going around. And we talk about locations repeating themselves. It's a different location, and there are some creepy elements. Rooms we've not seen before with these spoilers, but we also find Frank Stone's hidden layer where there's these really fucked up prisoner notes, aren't there? And I sense you were in the heart of the killer's lair. You'd think it was where Chris, Jaime, and Robert find in the workshop and the machine shop earlier, but now this is the place where he imprisoned people. And I don't know, I didn't think I was in jeopardy, but I definitely felt chills going through this location. I don't know if you thought the same.
It was great, wasn't it? Because to me, it felt so unexpected that we then just stumbled upon this lair. I think what added to it is obviously, I think one comment I'll make on this whole section, but actually much for the wider game at the Mill mostly. But it felt so grotty and grimy, this area, didn't it? There was graffiti on the wall. It was low lit. It was cluttered. It wasn't a pleasant place to be walking through, was it? You then stumble into this killer's lair and you find what's clearly a letter from one of his victims. I think it was Dwight Parker or something, who's then just detailing what's happened, if this letter makes it to someone, just to please tell what's happened to him and such. And it's sort of quite a disturbing read when you then look at Frank Stone's journal and things that we've seen before, where he created unique weapons to kill each of his victims. And we can then find other things where he's clearly been manipulated by Augustine in order to do these killings. And he's I've not heard from her for a while. And then he comes back and he's I've now heard from her and she's really happy with what I've done. This is a man clearly under the influence that's perhaps, like we've said before, had a tough upbringing and you know, he's carrying out the orders of someone else essentially.
Just to say, you mentioned Frank Stone's diary there, and I don't know if it is a Dead by Daylight Easter egg, but Dwight is the name of like the very first survivor, like one of the main survivors you can play as, and then he mentions like 4 initials of 4 people that he's going to kill and put through a trial. Now trials are like almost what you call like the matches in Dead by Daylight almost, and also like you do have 4 survivors, so it just felt very Dead by Daylight-esque, this whole diary.
Oh, nice, because I would not have picked that up. I assumed that they were just like completely random names really, but it's funny because you look at like the initials, DP obviously one of them for Dwight Parker, I think one of them was LR and one of them was JR, and I know this is a bit of a leap, but like I wonder if JR is actually in reference to like Jaime Rivera.
Yeah.
More so still in that like we do know from the prologue that there was like a baby in a cot, and we've got the impression that he's killed all of the others, so like there is a theory, I've seen it going round, I don't know if it really holds water, because obviously one of the choices is that the cot can be dropped into the furnace, which means that Jaime I should say, would be dead. But there is like thought that JR is in reference to Jaime Rivera, and that actually there is no rhyme or reason like why these people are being picked, but it just seems as though Augustine wants him to, you know, commit these murders and killings in order to appease to the entity, as to sort of accept him as a killer and therefore give Augustine more power and such. So it's just mad how like from this one little exploration scene, from like a couple of little clues, how you can build up, you know, a significant amount of, you know, the story as to what's going on in the background, you know.
For sure. And I love the little line in there about the fire waits for me, and we all know that like the game ends with a campfire, and I'll, you know, save it for when we get to the final analysis, but yeah, like the campfire is pretty significant in Dead by Daylight, so yeah, it's really cool to see it referenced in this diary as well.
Another thing I wanted to mention in this chapter is we do get to find Merlin's dog collar, which I did find in my blind playthrough, and then having finished the game I was looking through the achievements, I saw it was an achievement, I was like, wait, what? But I found that, and as I'm sure many of you listening to this are aware, whether it's on console, I think I've heard it on PlayStation and maybe even PC as well, that some of the achievements in this game are glitched, that you can't unlock them in your blind playthrough, which is such a shame because they had a similar issue with the Quarry as well. But what I have found for the most part, maybe apart from the collectible ones, is that you are able to, if you just jump back into the scene on the cutting room floor, it should then pop for you, or at the very least it popped for me anyway. So yeah, just as a little hint for anyone out there that's sort of listening to this and wants to go grab that achievement. Another little thing as well, bit of a stretch I know, but it took me back when we was crawling under the pipes with Linda. It just, I don't know mate, it just took me back to Heavy Rain. I don't know if it did with you, you know, obviously when you're playing as Ethan and you're like crawling through the tunnel like over the glass, just that like character being, you know, suppressed into such a small space, it just gave me Heavy Rain vibes. I don't know whether it did for you or not.
Yeah, I did think that, and with Heavy Rain you had to pick left or right, and this one was linear, but thank fuck it was, because I had a torrid time going twisting and turning as Heavy Rain, so like yeah, I'm so glad it was made easier here.
Yeah, and then after that we then come to the end of a chapter when we choose to then go up the ladder. So we're now going to rock on to chapter 10, titled In the House of Darkness. The first bit of this scene is where we see Chris, who's obviously been sent back in time, or sent into the future I should say, coming out of the sarcophagus. And now obviously then we then see a character come out very confused, understandably, and there's a bit of back and forth as to, oh, you're Bonnie's daughter and who are you, sort of thing, because Chris pops out. But we do get a choice quickly thereafter, which did surprise me. I didn't realise you could do it so soon. But can you send her back, or did you keep her in 2024, mate? I'm really curious now as to what happens then if she dies. Does Chris still come out and talk to Stan, or what?
Yeah, Chris comes out and sees like the dead body because Maddie basically like ages real quick and becomes stone and like becomes this like skeleton and just dies. And Chris comes out all confused, but she's almost like, ah, what the fuck is that? And she's like panicking. And then Stan comes in and he's freaking out at the body as well. Like, what is that? Who is that? Because they don't, like, Chris doesn't know who Maddie is and Stan doesn't know it's Maddie. So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, mate, I lost Maddie at this point.
Bloody hell. All right, okay. Well, the thing is, I played this scene multiple times, so I do have a good understanding of this scene and like the branching and stuff. As for me, I just chose to send her straight back to the 1980s because I was thinking, well, come on, let's just get her back to her people. I feel like there's more jeopardy if she stays in 2024. So I did. I just got her back in the machine. There's a couple of QTEs I think you've got to go and pull to get some sort of handle off because the original one snaps. So you have to do another button mashing one. I do get what you mean about the button mashing. It certainly seems to be from this point on, they get challenging. And it's to the point where like somehow looking at the button while I'm mashing it seems to help. Like if I was looking at the screen, it doesn't seem to help, but it was really, really challenging. That circle was getting ever closer to the button as if to say that you failed, but I'd narrowly passed it in this instance. But anyway, she goes back in, and then next thing you know, Maddie and Stan are looking at like the sarcophagus again, and then like presumably it's Augustine that comes out, but someone with a hood then comes out of the machine, and then they both leg it, and that's what happened for me anyway.
Yeah, very well. And you know, this is going to be really interesting for us because I chose to keep Chris in 2024. I don't know, I kind of was like, I'm intrigued, mix it up a little bit, have Chris in 2024 because I thought her interaction with Linda could be really interesting. But also, Frank Stone is back in the past, and I was like, for safety reasons, we should probably keep her here. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to see what went down with Chris in 2024. I don't know if you know what happens, but it'll be really interesting going forward now, me and you finding out what happens with Chris in each timeline, because I've got no idea the role she plays in the 1980s from this point, mate.
I equally have no idea what she does in 2024 either. But to quickly run over like what else can happen in terms of this scene. So when Chris comes out, obviously you've got the option of keeping her in 2024. There's also the option of sending her back in the 1980s. But then you've got this option where like if you fail like the QTE to get the, you know, the thing you got to snap off to use the lever.
Yeah.
You can choose to go back to the 1980s, but then there's this instance where like Stan then gets like knocked off balance and he's like hanging onto the edge of like the platform that you're in the room, and you get a choice, and it's like you can help Stan or you can choose to go through the machine anyway. Now I've not chosen, you know, help Stan, but if I'm guessing, I imagine, you know, you help him up and then maybe you stay in 2024, I'm not sure. But if you choose to go back to the 1980s and you've not passed the QTEs, like you failed the QTEs in that section, Chris goes back all right, but you hear her screaming and Maddie's like, oh God, something's gone wrong. So then when is it chapter 11 or whenever the next chapter starts and she's coming out of the portal, she doesn't even come out properly like she did in my playthrough. She just comes out of like this, she's just basically bone and flesh, and she stumbles out, falls onto the floor, and then it just says that, you know, she died, like, you know, because the machine screwed up. You know, she then dies back in the 1980s, and she's just all like this bone and flesh and stuff. Yeah, there's clearly like a few deaths that can go down, and that, not to mention Stan's one as well, where he gets cut in half.
Yeah, it is a pretty brutal death. Did you, because obviously if Chris went back for you, did Maddie save Stan for you, or did you kill Stan at this point?
No, so like that didn't even come up for me because like there wasn't a QTE for me. You know, the QTE that you've got to pass to save Stan, that didn't even pop up for me because I, as Chris, chose to go straight back into the machine.
Oh, okay. So I would have had it, and yeah, I managed to save Stan at that point. So it's interesting because, like, from this point, you're going to have Maddie and Stan hanging out for a bit. I actually had Chris and Stan, which was an odd pairing. But yeah, interesting.
We'll have to see what goes down with that going forward. But final chapter that we're going to cover in this analysis episode, guys, is chapter 11, titled All Paths Must Cross. And so speaking for me, mate, obviously we are going to differ here because Chris stayed in 2024 for you. But as for me, because I sent her back to the 1980s, she come out of the portal and the first thing she saw was her boyfriend cut in half, which was probably a bit of a surprise to her. And then after that, you're sort of instructed to leave the machine shop and you meet up with Linda. And it must be a bit awkward because she was then trying to describe, like, the fact that, that she travelled through time, but I don't think she even realised that she did travel through time because she was saying, I met Bonnie's daughter, and you could tell she was like stumbling over her words, and Linda was sort of the same because she's just been experiencing the monster in the camera and she doesn't know what's going on. And then they're both interrupted by Bonnie, who then appears. So that is literally the end of the chapter. I know I've just basically walked through it. Is there any like pointers that you wanted to add on it, mate?
Honestly, no. Like, I thought the chapter seemed pretty nothing to me because for me it's just Linda walking, Bonnie meeting up with her, having a bit of a sob and a hug, and then they're like, oh, what if that thing's still out there? We need to get out of here. We could potentially get through the storm drain. And then the chapter ends. So I think this chapter is very much like you need Chris for it to be a thing. But, you know, I get payoff with Chris being in my 2024 timeline in the later chapters, but not in this one. Yeah, absolute nothing happened to me, lad.
That's the thing. Maybe like you say, like your payoff will come in like the 2024 scenes because, you know, I feel like chapter 11, if you did keep a thingy in 2024, is going to be very short for most people. A lot of people I've spoke to have kept her in 2024. Like, not many people seem to send her back into the 1980s like myself. So yeah, that was chapter 11, guys. A very quick one indeed, and that does mark the end of this analysis episode. As usual, tell us your comments in the comments section, your choices, and we'll look forward to reading and replying to them. And of course, the next episode will be the penultimate one, where we'll probably be talking about chapters 12 and 13. And yeah, mate, have you got anything to add before we wrap up?
No, not at all, guys. Just thank you very much for watching.
Good stuff. See you in the next one, guys.